Macbeth Act 2. As Macbeth makes his way towards the king's bedchamber, he encounters Banquo with his son Fleance. Banquo has been unable to sleep and explains to Macbeth that he has been dreaming of the weird sisters. After arranging to meet again in order to discuss the matter, Banquo asserts his loyalty to the king and bids goodnight to Macbeth. No sooner is Macbeth alone than he has an extraordinary experience. Either in the heat of the moment or through some supernatural visitation, he sees a ghostly dagger indicating the way to Duncan. Convinced that there is no such thing, he climbs to the king's chamber. Having drugged the guards of Duncan's chamber, Lady Macbeth now meets her husband in the lower courtyard as he emerges from the king's room itself. Macbeth's conscience is clearly disturbed by what he has done, and once more his wife criticizes his lack of firmness. The success of their plot is also in jeopardy because Macbeth has brought the daggers with him. Lady Macbeth returns to the scene of the murder in order to place the daggers and to smear the king's sleeping servants with blood, a deed that presents her with none of the horrors that now affects Macbeth. As the scene closes, we hear with the Macbeth a loud and persistent knocking at the door. The knocking continues, but the porter does not immediately open the door. Instead, he plays a game with himself in which he imagines himself as the porter of hell and jokes about the kind of sinners he might let in. Eventually, however, he opens the door to Lennox and Macduff, who have been commanded to call upon the king to arrange the royal departure. It is early morning, and most of those in the castle are still asleep. One who is not is Macbeth, and he directs Macduff to the king's chamber. Only a moment passes before the news breaks. King Duncan has been murdered. On hearing the terrible revelation, the Macbeth's acts are beyond suspicion, but Macbeth admits to having killed the guards of the king's chamber. Not part of the original plan, and Lady Macbeth faints. The assembled saints of Scotland resolve to avenge the act of treason. Duncan's son Malcolm and Donalbain, thinking themselves open to the charge of murdering their father, plan to flee to England and Ireland. In his way from the castle, the Thane of Ross encounters an old man who confirms the widespread reports of disruption in the natural world. Macduff appears with fresh news that Duncan is buried, that his sons have fled, and that the kingship has passed to Macbeth. The opening prophecies of the witches have been completed. Banquo suspects Macbeth, but gains comfort from the second part of the witch's prediction, that his own children will be kings.